The year was early 1948, and the setting was the treacherous yet vital maritime artery known as the Strait of Malacca. This narrow stretch of water, wedged between the Malay Peninsula and the Indonesian island of Sumatra, has served for centuries as one of the most critical shipping lanes in the world, linking the Indian Ocean to the Pacific. On this particular day, the conditions were deceptively serene. The tropical sun beat down on a glass-like sea, and the winds remained calm, betraying no hint of the nightmare that was about to unfold. Numerous vessels from the United States, Britain, and the Netherlands were traversing this route, carrying post-war cargo and navigating the busy shipping lanes. However, the tranquility was shattered abruptly when radio operators across several ships began receiving a series of frantic, disjointed distress signals. Unlike the garbled static of voice transmissions, which could easily be lost to atmospheric interference like humidity or storms, these signals came in the sharp, rhythmic staccato of Morse code, a method considered the gold standard for long-distance reliability. The SOS call that pierced the radio silence was not a standard request for mechanical assistance. It was a terrifying cry for help that chilled the blood of every operator who decoded it. The transmission originated from a Dutch freighter, identified as the SS Ourang Medan. The Morse code began with the universal distress signal, 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots. But what followed was a message so harrowing it seemed ripped from a horror story. The decoded message read, "SOS, SOS, all officers, including the captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge, possibly whole crew dead." This was followed by a chaotic flurry of dots and dashes, indistinguishable gibberish that suggested the sender was losing their composure or their physical faculties. Then, the radio fell silent for a few agonizing moments before a final two-word message was tapped out with chilling finality: "I die." After that, the airwaves turned into a static hiss. The sudden silence was heavier than the noise itself, leaving the listeners on the nearby ships with the grim realization that something catastrophic had just occurred aboard the Ourang Medan. Nearest to the triangulation of the distress signal was the Silver Star, an American merchant vessel navigating the same waters. Upon receiving the terrifying transmission, the captain of the Silver Star wasted no time. He immediately ordered a change of course, diverting his ship toward the last known coordinates of the Dutch freighter. As the Silver Star raced against time, the crew prepared themselves for a rescue operation, though the grim nature of the message suggested they might be embarking on a recovery mission instead. After several hours of steaming at full speed, the lookout on the Silver Star spotted a silhouette on the horizon. As they drew closer, the SS Ourang Medan came into full view. To the naked eye, the ship appeared physically undamaged. There were no signs of a collision, no hull breaches, and no listing to suggest it was taking on water. It was simply floating, listing gently with the ocean swell, an eerie ghost ship drifting in the middle of a busy trade route. However, seasoned sailors noticed immediate anomalies. Despite being a steamship, there was no smoke billowing from its funnel, and the decks were completely devoid of movement. The captain of the Silver Star attempted to hail the Ourang Medan using the ship's loudhailer and whistle, but the only response was the sound of the ocean lapping against the steel hull. The lack of response confirmed their worst fears, prompting the captain to assemble a boarding party. A small team of sailors descended into a lifeboat and rowed across the gap between the two vessels. As they climbed the ladder and stepped onto the deck of the Dutch freighter, they were immediately struck by an unnatural chill in the air, a temperature drop that seemed inconsistent with the tropical heat of the Malacca Strait. But it was the sight that greeted them that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The deck was littered with the corpses of the Dutch crew. They were lying on their backs, their faces frozen in rictus masks of sheer terror. Their eyes were wide open, staring blindly at the sun, and their mouths were gaped open as if their final breath had been a scream. The boarding party moved cautiously through the silent ship, checking for any signs of life, but found only death frozen in time. The captain was found dead on the bridge, slumped over the wheel. The other officers were scattered in the chart room and the wheelhouse, their bodies contorted in the same defensive postures as the crew on the deck, arms outstretched, fingers clawing at the air as if trying to ward off an invisible attacker. Even the ship's dog was not spared. The animal was found dead, its teeth bared in a snarl at an unseen enemy, frozen mid-growl. The most baffling aspect of the carnage was the condition of the bodies. Despite the evident horror on their faces, there were no signs of physical violence. There were no gunshot wounds, no stab marks, no blunt force trauma, and no structural damage to the ship that would indicate an explosion or a battle. It was as if the life had simply been snapped out of them by a force that left no physical trace. Finally, the search team made their way to the radio room, hoping to find the author of the final, chilling message. Inside, they found the radio operator still seated at his station. His hand was still resting on the Morse code key, his finger poised as if ready to tap out one last letter. Like the others, he was dead, his eyes fixed on something horrific that only he could see in his final moments. The scene inside the Ourang Medan defied all logical explanation. The ship was a steel tomb, floating perfectly intact upon the ocean. The Silver Star's crew realized that whatever had killed these men had acted swiftly and silently, leaving behind a tableau of fear, but no clues as to the cause. With no survivors to tell the tale and a ship full of inexplicable corpses, the captain of the Silver Star decided that the only course of action was to tow the vessel to the nearest port for a thorough investigation. They began the process of attaching tow lines, unaware that the mystery of the Ourang Medan was about to take one final, explosive turn. Just as the Silver Star's crew began the laborious process of securing the tow lines to the SS Ourang Medan, the situation escalated from a salvage operation to a desperate flight for survival. A thick, ominous column of smoke began to curl upwards from cargo hold number 4. At first, it was a mere wisp, barely noticeable against the tropical sky, but within seconds, it blackened and thickened, suggesting a volatile chemical reaction rather than a standard fire. The heat radiating from the deck became intense almost instantly. The salvage team, realizing that the source of the smoke was deep within the ship's belly where the most dangerous cargo would likely be stored, abandoned their efforts immediately. Panic took hold, not from the ghostly corpses they had just witnessed, but from the very real and imminent danger of detonation. They scrambled back down the ladders, throwing themselves into their lifeboat and rowing furiously back toward the safety of the Silver Star. They had barely put a safe distance between themselves and the Dutch freighter when the ocean was rocked by a cataclysmic explosion. The blast was so powerful that it momentarily lifted the massive steel hull of the SS Ourang Medan out of the water. A fireball erupted from the center of the ship, consuming the bridge, the radio room, and the silent crew in a blinding flash of destruction. The shockwave rattled the Silver Star, sending tremors through its own hull. As the smoke cleared, the crew watched in awe and horror as the broken vessel groaned and began to slip beneath the waves. The ship, which had been perfectly buoyant just moments before, now took on water rapidly through its shattered keel. Within minutes, the SS Ourang Medan vanished completely, dragged down into the abyssal depths of the Strait of Malacca. It took with it every piece of evidence, the logbooks, the cargo manifest, the frozen bodies, and the terrifying secret of what had killed them. The ocean surface returned to a disturbing calm, leaving behind only debris and the shaken witnesses aboard the Silver Star. Because the physical evidence was obliterated, the story of the Ourang Medan immediately entered the realm of maritime legend, blurring the lines between historical fact and sailor folklore. In the years that followed, skepticism grew. Repurposed, renamed or operated under flags of convenience to avoid taxes and regulations. It was common for ships involved in illicit activities, such as smuggling or covert government operations, to be ghost ships, operating entirely off the books. If the Ourang Medan was engaged in illegal transport, its owners would have ensured that no paper trail existed to link them to the vessel. The mystery deepened in 1954 when a series of articles appeared in Dutch newspapers, reigniting interest in the case. These reports claimed to have sourced information from a survivor of the Ourang Medan who had been found adrift on a lifeboat shortly after the incident but died before he could tell the full tale to authorities. According to these accounts, the ship had been traveling from a minor Chinese port to Costa Rica, avoiding major authorities to transport a highly illicit cargo. The survivor allegedly confessed that the captain and officers were involved in smuggling dangerous chemical substances left over from the war. This narrative aligns with one of the most compelling theories regarding the crew's demise: the transport of unsecured hazardous materials. The timeline fits perfectly. In 1948, the Pacific was still littered with the detritus of war, including vast stockpiles of chemical weapons and unstable explosives that needed to be disposed of or sold on the black market. The theory that has gained the most traction among modern researchers involves a deadly combination of potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin. It is speculated that the Ourang Medan was carrying these volatile substances in its cargo holds, specifically hold number 4, where the smoke originated. If seawater had breached the hold and reacted with the potassium cyanide, it would have created hydrogen cyanide gas. This gas is invisible, odorless to many, and lethal within moments of inhalation. It causes histotoxic hypoxia, effectively preventing the body's cells from using oxygen. This would explain the crew's frozen states. They didn't die from trauma, they died from sudden asphyxiation, gasping for air that their lungs couldn't process, resulting in the terrified, open-mouthed expressions found on the corpses. The subsequent fire and explosion could be attributed to the nitroglycerin, which becomes dangerously unstable over time and is highly sensitive to shock or temperature changes. The gas killed the crew silently, and the chemicals destroyed the ship shortly after, erasing the evidence of the crime. A darker, more conspiratorial angle to this theory involves Unit 731, the infamous covert biological and chemical warfare research and development unit of the Imperial Japanese Army. After the war, the United States granted immunity to the physicians of Unit 731 in exchange for their research data on biological warfare. Some historians theorize that the Ourang Medan was a vessel chartered by intelligence agencies to secretly transport these horrific biological weapons and experiments from Asia to the West. Because the cargo was so sensitive and the operation so controversial, the ship was never registered, and the mission was strictly off the books. A leak in one of these biological canisters would have been catastrophic, killing the crew instantly without leaving external marks. This theory was bolstered in 2003 when the CIA declassified a document, a letter from 1959 written to the director of the CIA, that explicitly referenced the SS Ourang Medan tragedy as a key to understanding other maritime disappearances, proving that the intelligence community took the incident far more seriously than the public realized. Ultimately, the true fate of the SS Ourang Medan remains one of the ocean's most enduring enigmas. Whether it was a victim of a supernatural force, a tragic accident involving volatile wartime chemicals, or a covert operation gone wrong, the result was the same: a steel tomb floating in silence. The image of the radio operator tapping out his final "I die" while staring into the face of an invisible killer serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk on the open sea. The story endures because it touches on a primal fear: the idea of being trapped in the middle of a vast ocean, surrounded by safety and technology, yet utterly helpless against an unseen, silent death. To this day, when ships pass through the Strait of Malacca, sailors still whisper the name Ourang Medan, a warning that no matter how much we master the waves, there are secrets in the deep that are never meant to surface.